I am the Deputy Director of the Navajo and Hopi Families COVID-19 Relief Fund, Yeha of Nido, She'e Cassandra Begay Yanxia. My maternal clans are Tsitnajini and Toritchitni. My paternal clans are Nigerian, Irish, and British on my father's side. Twanane Sizade Nasha. I'm speaking to you from Salt Lake City, Utah, ancestral lands of the Utes. And I'm excited to speak with and extend a warm welcome to our special guest, Dr. Carletta Chief. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm excited to have you as a guest. I want to spend a couple minutes for you to introduce yourself.
Oh, ja, Shazada, Shaya, Torajit Nishlando, Twana Bashichin, Azasane Dashiche, do ya Eden Trachine Dashanala, Aquat A. Sananshle, Aro, Ake Arnold, so other Dino, Igi Qua, Dan so Gizigi Qua, Beshan Seke Sibi on there, Aro, I see Bar Hansen Qua, Shatahoth Shea Le University of Arizona the Nashnish the Tonash Kato no settle a Bishendashnisho Nanshtin a Kokot Shananish Inson Aron Le Ziliji Barade Yasi Nasha the Shiyaho Ato the Shik a Kedahot and the Shahawan to ako kota shigar nanti ako he also.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chief. Today, we wanted to talk about Dr. Carletta Chief's research. She did a survey and a lot of research on Navajo water hauling during COVID-19. And she recently got approval from the Navajo Nation Internal Review Board to go ahead and start sharing and disseminating this information with our communities, with the public, and educating us on her methodology and her results. As you guys know, the COVID-19 pandemic has had a profound impact on communities across the globe. We want to acknowledge the ongoing challenges faced by the Navajo and Hopi people due to COVID-19. The pandemic disproportionately affected our communities, highlighting pre-existing disparities in healthcare access, infrastructure, and economic security. However, this crisis has also sparked incredible acts of generosity and innovation. Our organization, along with many others, have played a vital role in supporting our communities throughout the pandemic, providing essential resources and fostering a sense of hope that our people have in themselves. I'm thrilled to have this conversation with Dr. Carletta Chief. She's a distinguished Diné hydrologist and leader in Indigenous environmental science, whose work directly addresses challenges faced by Navajo communities, including those exacerbated by the pandemic. I do want to spend some time introducing Dr. Carletta Chief and her affiliation with the University of Arizona. She is a remarkable Diné Essan who bridges the gap between science and social justice, advocating for sustainable solutions that empower Indigenous communities. She holds a PhD in hydrology and water resources from the University of Arizona and both a bachelor's and master's degree in environmental engineering from Stanford University. Dr. Chief holds a professorship and extension specialist role in environmental science at the University of Arizona. She also leads the University of Arizona's Indigenous Resilience Center, focusing on community-driven solutions to environmental challenges faced by Indigenous groups. Her work centers on achieving food, energy, and water security for Indigenous communities, particularly in off-grid settings. She also champions the Indigenous food, energy, water, and water security and sovereignty, which is also known as the IndigiFuse program, which aims to train a diverse workforce with expertise in sustainable solutions for Indigenous communities. Recently, Dr. Chief was one of 8 individuals across the United States to receive the Environmental Leader Award. Dr. Chief conducted a water survey in Navajo communities during the COVID-19 pandemic, and her research, as I mentioned, was recently approved by the Navajo Internal Review Board. Today, for the first time, she will be sharing the results publicly. So thank you so much again, Dr. Chief. You're phenomenal, Danessa, and it's our honor. I do want to spend most of this time just holding space for you, your work, for what your team has been doing over the last few years. Dr. Chief has prepared a presentation for us today, our communities, to disseminate this information that's very important that we spread awareness on. So she'll be going over those details, very statistical, lots of data. So I want to make the most use of time, and I'll go ahead and hand it over to you to go ahead and share your presentation with us.
Oh, yeah, Shazada. And thank you to everyone who has tuned in here on live Facebook. I think this is the first time I've been doing something live on Facebook. So I also am one of the listeners on the Sihasin Hour. So I did have a chance to see Chip's presentation several months ago. Was really, really interesting and inspiring. So thank you for holding this platform to share knowledge and to just network and be in community with one another. Earlier, I shared my introduction in the Dene language, and for those of you out there, what I said was I am Bitterwater, born for near the water, and my maternal grandfather is many goats, and my paternal grandfather is red running into the water, and that's how I identify myself as a Dene woman and mother, wife, and relative. And I'm originally from Black Mesa, Arizona. That's where I grew up. It's an area near the Four Corners region that is impacted by Peabody Coal Company. And I grew up seeing mining around my community, and it really formulated my journey to this day and the work that I do in environmental science. So I'm really happy to be here, and also looking forward to sharing these results with you. And like Cassandra said, these were approved by the Navajo Nation Human Research Review Board. They oversee human subjects research on the Navajo Nation. And we have been sharing some of the other results from this project in different formats, like at conferences or chapter meetings. But this is the first time that I will actually be sharing information on the water survey results. And a lot of times people give gratitude to me for the work I do, but actually I do work in a team, and my team is quite large. And we have several professors that are on a team, like Janie Ingram, who's a Diné professor in at Northern Arizona University, Paloma Beamer at University of Arizona, Joe Hoover, who's a professor here in the Indigenous Resilience Center, and Stephanie Carroll, who's well known on her Indigenous data sovereignty, and then many students and community partners that are part of this project across the Navajo Nation, like Six Rural Solutions, led by Janine Yazzie, Kern Colley Moore, and Chili Yazzie and Shiprock. So these are just ongoing partnerships that we have, and all of this is made possible through collaboration and through knowledge sharing. It would not have been possible with me doing it alone. So I want to acknowledge them, and in particular my students. This was led by Nikki Tooley, a graduate student. She's the NEH as well. And then Wilzalve Quilis Guzman, who's getting her master's on Monday. And Ruth Pennell, who's a former student of mine, now serving as a research specialist. And Nieves Vasquez, who's currently a graduate student with me as well. So we all work together to bring this information to you, and we have a lot of detailed numbers, but I just wanted to go through and also have conversations about it as we move forward. I don't want it to be too much like a lecture. Um, so what we did was we did a survey during the pandemic. We started getting approval processes in place, and it took us about a year to get the approval. So this was like in 2020 when the water insecurities of the Navajo people became even more amplified and highlighted during COVID-19. And this was an ongoing issue that we are aware of, and many of us have grew up with no running water. So our approach was really to understand how water insecurities had been amplified and how relief was effective or not effective for people that were still hauling water. So we got resolutions from various communities, and most of the communities were selected through our partnership with Six World Solutions because they have been doing a lot of work in these communities, doing rainwater harvesting and other sorts of solar installations and things like that. So they knew the community there, and we started from there in terms of the communities that we came involved with. And then through our team and our collaborations, we also expanded. So these are the communities that we uh, went to, listed here. And we did 3 different surveys. One was specific on water hauling, one was on water relief, and then one was on water quality. So I want to start with water hauling. We had about 57 participants that answered the questions around water hauling. And what we found was that we had the greatest participation from Winter Rock, San Juan, and Delcon, and Ojeto. And the average age of a water hauler was 50 years, and majority of them were Navajo. And we did have some Hopi members who were part of the survey. And then it was pretty much split between male and female. And what we were doing was like going to the place where people were hauling water. So the local watering pump. And sometimes we would be, at the chapter house waiting, and that's actually not the place where people are hauling water. They're hauling water somewhere else. So talking to the community, we just tried to find where the people were actually hauling water. But majority of the people that were surveyed in this effort were water haulers for more than 10 years. And they, majority of the people hauled water anywhere from 5 to 10 miles away. So they're generally local people, but also there were people that drove farther, 11 to 20 miles away. 28% of the people drove that distance. And then a much smaller majority traveled 21 to 30 miles away. But there was a few people that did drive quite far. 9% of the people drove 31 or more miles to get water. 70% of the people do not, they will not consider moving closer to a central water line access area. And I think that's indicative of how people are very connected to their homeland, and they don't want to move. And they feel that they shouldn't have to move because that's where their home is. That's where they've lived for a long time. And some already have an indoor water pipes, and it would be too expensive to move. And some felt that the water should be brought to them. And so these are all the reasons that people stated that they just will not move to get closer to a central water line. So when we're thinking about water security, this is important to know the kind of solutions we come up with. The primary source of drinking water, 79% of the people surveyed say they primarily use bottled water, and 39% said they use well or private well, 37% use NTUA, 21% use a spring, and so forth. So you can see even like rainwater, there's a 5% of our people are actually getting water from the rain, and then even 2% are getting it from the stream. So this is just the range of people, how they're drinking water. And so I think the big point is a lot of people are using bottled water in their homes. We asked people how many times a week do you haul water for your residents? And um, 53% of the participants said they haul water 2 to 3 times a week. So imagine how much gas that will require a family to have to travel 2 to 3 times a week to get water. And even 30%, which is still pretty large or significant, haul more than 3 times a week. And then there's a small fraction that only haul water 1 or 2 times, once a week or once every other week. So that just means there's a lot of traffic going on the reservation regarding people going out hauling water. And I think, we see that when we're driving out, we always see a water hauler on the road wherever you go. So there's a lot of energy and effort put into just getting water. The uses of haul water, the average number of uses per person was 4. So that top 4 were cleaning, cooking, livestock, and personal hygiene. Those were the top number of uses. And there was half of the percentage, 51% said they use it for agriculture. 39% are actually hauling for the family or neighbors, 37% for washing clothes. So those are just some of the uses that people use for their hauled water. We asked, how likely are you to accepting changing your current water hauling practices with new technology? And 55% said that they were very likely, and 23% said they were somewhat likely. So this question was really looking at different types of technology, especially during COVID-19. We had a lot of humanitarian efforts with people bringing in on-site water disinfection units or water treatment units, and even my team as well. So I was really asking, like, since you want to stay at home and you don't want to be connected, or you can't be connected to a central water system, what about a different type of technology? And people were actually said they're actually interested. And then we asked, would you be willing to pay for operation and maintenance to upkeep the new water technology made available to you? And 49% said that they would be, but then 42% said that the group bringing the technology should pay for the O&M. Then we also asked, how do you wish your needs of being a water hauler would be met? And 77% said build more water lines. 63% said build more paved roads. 63% said build more wells. 45% said set up cisterns and septic system, and then 45% also said develop funding opportunities. So pretty much makes sense, what their answers were in terms of the needs, of how their needs could be met. So it's interesting because they said they're not willing to move to get to central water line, but they also would like there to be built more water lines to be built. So that's interesting topic, relevant topic, especially with the Navajo Nation water rights settlement going on right now. So what the next section is really about water relief. And, during the pandemic, there were people bringing in water. And so we asked a section about that. And sometimes the people who took the first survey stayed and they took the second survey and they stayed and took the third survey. So there is a group of people that took all three surveys. So the demographics are majority very similar. So during the pandemic, the Navajo Nation received funds from I think it was the ARPA funds to build transitional watering points at the chapter houses. And they're much smaller, and you have these small buckets that you fill water with. And so they targeted the communities prioritized where they were going to build these transitional watering points with the intent of being able to get more water to people during the pandemic. But surprisingly, 71% of the people did not haul water from those transitional watering points. And I saw that visually because we were at a chapter house standing at a transitional watering point and nobody came. And we're like, chapter house is open, nobody's getting water from here. Where are they getting water from? So it turns out that they were actually hauling water at another site that was like a livestock watering point. And so people were lining up there and they were getting water there instead of the transitional watering point. 77% of the people were very concerned about having access to safe drinking water at home, which probably is why people are drinking bottled water. But they do believe, 83% believe that access to safe drinking water at home is very important to their health. So they understand the importance of water quality. During the pandemic, the Indian Health Service provided chlorination tablets to people because that was a way to disinfect the water that they were hauling. However, 85% of the people do not use chlorination tablets. And I do have to put a clause on this to say that we're not sure if all of these people that did say they don't use chlorination tablets actually had the chance to get it. So you have to also just take that with a grain of salt. 77% of participants reported that the new transitional watering points did not reduce the number of miles they had to drive to get safe drinking water. 57% of participants had not heard about the transitional watering points. And 49% of the people said that they would like written communication in Navajo and English. And 81% said that both Navajo and English are the preferred languages for verbal and spoken communication and information. So that just means that, when we're in a pandemic, it's really important also to have the Navajo language included in any of those messages that are being relayed. 71% of the participants had not recently obtained a water tank from the Navajo COVID relief program. And programs where participants did obtain a water tank are listed here. So 7 got it from Dig Deep, 4 from the chapter, 2 from Navajo Engineering and Construction Authority, and then 1 from the Navajo Water Access Coordination Group. I do have to say that the chapter, those that did get it from the chapter might have also been ones from the Navajo Water Access Coordination Group. A large number of people also haul water for other households besides their own. And we're not sure if, that was increased because of the pandemic, because remember, there were people actually being runners for their families during the pandemic. So maybe they had one person doing their water hauling as well. I'm not sure, but there was a large majority of people that are hauling water for other households besides their own. So the final section is on water quality, and this one was focusing on the water sources. They were using the water quality of those water sources. And again, this is the same demographics. We're seeing similar demographics from the other two surveys. So 95% of the participants reported that hand washing increased their water usage during COVID-19 pandemic. So remember, during the pandemic, they were saying to wash your hands for 20 seconds. However, many of the people don't have running water, they're hauling water. And so the more you wash your hands, the more water you're using, and then the more water hauling you're doing. So it was true. This data verifies that 95, pretty much almost everybody, their water usage increased during the pandemic, which makes sense. And then the people also said that the average increase in daily hand washing frequency from pre-COVID time to the time of the survey was 1.5 times. So people were washing their hands 1.5 times more than they did before the pandemic. And the average distance, people said that they had to travel was 15 miles to get to a water source, for anywhere from 1 mile to 61 miles. The average travel time to water source was 32 minutes. And that travel time ranged from 5 minutes to 2 hours. "66% of the participants reported an increase in the water demand for drinking as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic." So that's a large number of people that required more water. And and I'm thinking about those times, and we're like, stay at home order, everybody stay home, and you're drinking more water at home, you need more water at home. So that demand increased for majority of the people. Also, 83% reported an increase in water demand for hand washing as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So interesting how you see the need for drinking, the need for hand washing, and how those increased during the pandemic. So this table is looking at the reported change in water demand for different uses. And what we have is the different uses are drinking, hand washing, hygiene, livestock, and ceremonies. And each line shows whether that decrease, increase, same use, or people left it blank. But we bolded this line, the second line, which is about increase. And you can see that majority of each of these uses was that it increased. So it increased for drinking, water usage increased for hand washing, it increased for hygiene, increased for livestock, and ceremonies as well. So overall, people were needing more water at home during the pandemic. 57% of participants use unregulated water sources for drinking. And that means water that's not meant for drinking. It's not potable, and people were still using those during the pandemic. 57% of the participants think the community water system is good for their health. So that is where they're hauling their water. And so wherever they're hauling water, they believe that it's good for their health. Um, Participants felt this way about the community water system because for many reasons, and 23% were concerned for pollution, 18% trust in TUA regulation and treatment processes, 15% rely on community trust, 10% haven't gotten sick or water looks or tastes fine, 10% of them say water has no smell or taste, and then 10% need more information. 71% of the participants answered that the water they haul is good for their health. So it's a similar question to the previous one about the water system. So pretty much people feel like they're hauling from a good water source, even though it may not be potable. And similarly, same reasons that they're concerned about pollution, mistrust the water looks dirty, 24% rely on community trust, 19% haven't gotten sick, and 14% trust in TUA, and 11% look to the earth and animals. Majority of the participants say they do not treat the water that they haul, so they don't treat it in any way. This table is really looking at the average water bill per month, and the water that the information also assumes here that people are connected to the N2A water system. So you could see people are indicating anywhere from $20 to $100 in their water bill. So you have a lot of people that are paying $100 or more their water bill. But more than half of the people say they don't have a water bill. They pay gas per haul. So that's a big part of the water survey participants that say they don't have a water bill. They're actually hauling water and gas. The gas, the money they pay for gas is actually their water bill. 88% of the participants said they would be interested in a water treatment system in their home. And the reason they would be interested is because it would protect their health or safety. 27% would provide clean or quality water. And then others talked about trust in the water and then just having access at a cheaper option. So that's in a nutshell some of the things that we heard out there during the tail end of the pandemic in the summer of 2022. And I think it's really important to, I'm really just happy for my team and the collaborations we had with the Navajo Nation and the Navajo partners to be able to get out there and get a snapshot of what was going on in terms of water hauling during COVID-19.
Wow, very fascinating information. I was thinking about some of the numbers that you were sharing, and you said at one point that some participants are traveling 31 miles a week to get water to a water source. And was that 31 miles round trip or one way?
Um, that's a good question. I'll have to look into that.
Well, even if
Uh,
it is just one way, if they're doing that once a week, driving 31 miles, and there's 4 weeks in a month, that's 120 miles that they're driving. Assuming they're going at a reasonable speed, that's about 30 minutes a week. Um, and that's what, over 2 hours a month driving, um, just to get access to clean water.
mhm,
If assuming that's one way. But
mhm.
if it's one way, that'd be 2 hours a month hauling water. And if it's 62 miles that they're driving round trip, double that. So they're driving 4 hours a month just to get water. Uh, and they're driving about 120 miles one way and 240 round trip, putting all that mileage on their car. So I think, when we talk about, you know, what does this mean for the quality of life of our community members when you don't have access to clean, running, drinking water? If you are living on an Indian reservation, on the Navajo reservation, where the unemployment rate is 50%, where a third of the people don't have access to clean running water, and you have to spend 4 hours of your month, all these miles on your car, the wear and tear, the gas, that it takes to run all these miles every month. You know, tell me more about that, because that really impacts directly the quality of life of our community members when they,
Yep.
simply because they don't have access to running water in the year 2024. And our community members are living in the United States, in the most powerful, richest country in the world, yet they have to haul their own water, spend all this time, money just to get access. I wondered, like, what are your thoughts on that? Because I do know that you grew up very similarly without access to clean running water. So I want to get your thoughts on that. What do you think? I mean, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think it really shows how big the problem is, how huge of an impact it has on people's lives. If you just pick a number out of the slide deck here, say you're spending 100 miles, you're driving 100 miles a week to get water, whether that's 1 to 3 times a week, because there are people that are hauling water more than 3 times a week. And you don't know what kind of cistern they have. Maybe it's a small cistern, maybe it's a larger, people have different ranges of the size of the cistern. And times that by 400 miles a month. And then how many times do they have to fill up their gas tank to get water? And that doesn't include all the gas that they need to go get groceries, go feed their livestock, go to appointments. So the amount of wear and tear and the amount of miles people are driving to get, basic services is almost becomes exponential. Like when you put it in that number, those numbers, the amount of money spent on gas. And most people have trucks. They don't have, small efficient cars because they need a truck when you're living on the res to haul water, to haul livestock, to just get to your home because of dirt roads. So the amount of money people are spending on gas becomes becomes big. And then if you don't have the money to pay for gas, then everything starts coming down very quickly. Like your ability to get food, your ability to get water, um, your ability to get health care. Um, so I remember when I was growing up, fortunately, I lived in a community where the water hauling point was 3 miles away. But even so, like growing up, we did conserve water. Water hauling didn't happen often, and so a lot of times we're probably not drinking enough water, and we're very conscious of the water that we use. Bathing. I remember growing up, we bathe, once a week. And so it also relates to hygiene and being able to wash your dishes, being able to clean your food. And so, it's just a cascading impact when you don't have easy access to water.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand what that really is to not have access to clean running water. I grew up on the reservation without running water. We used to get our water from springs in the ground, and we used to have to fill milk jugs. Um, you go to the grocery store today, you can buy a gallon of milk. We used to fill those with water from a spring just coming out of the earth, and we used to put a pipe, those PVC pipes, I think they're called, into the just to the earth, and then to get the water to funnel out so that it could come down into the milk jug. And I remember being just this little girl. I mean, I was like maybe 8 or 9 or 10 years old, having to walk, I don't know, maybe half mile, to go get my water from a local spring and carry that 1 gallon milk jug after I filled it up with the spring back to where we were living. And I did this on the regular every day. And who knows what I was drinking. Because there was no way to clean it. We just assumed, I saw myself in these statistics that you're reporting, um, with some of these other community members experiencing the same thing today in 2024. And I don't, you know, I that really affected my ability and my family's ability to clean ourselves, to clean our dishes, to cook, and things like that. So it was very time consuming. We had limited household functions. Being able to clean our clothes, being able to bathe, very challenging. It took a lot more planning. And obviously that affected our quality of life. My mom, a lot of our community members are raising many children in the home, elders even living in the home. So if we are spending a lot of our time just even having access to basic necessities, it's difficult to increase the quality of your life, to focus on your education, on your learning, on your skills, when you're barely struggling at that bottom base of trying to get safety, trying to get nutrition, trying to get water. You can't think about, being a successful person or going on to pursue these opportunities, traveling the world when you're barely struggling to survive. So those were ways that impacted me directly. And I think obviously showing in the statistics that you're sharing as well. We did have some questions from the audience. Someone said, Colin Ben said, can you give examples of unregulated water sources and what types of water treatment can be installed in homes?
Okay, great. Yes. So unregulated water sources are livestock, wells, and springs is an unregulated water source. Streams. So you shouldn't be drinking water if you're hauling from a livestock. well, you shouldn't be drinking that water. Um, the water has not been tested. It has not been screened, and it doesn't pass the water quality standards. So I just tell everybody out there, if you're hauling from a livestock, well, you shouldn't be drinking from there. So those are examples of what we call non-potable water sources. And typically there should be a sign that says, do not drink this water. And the Navajo Nation does their best to put those signs out there, and let people know that that's not a drinking water source. Now, those sources are likely good enough for animals and agriculture. So that's why they call it livestock, because there are different standards for drinking for human consumption and animal consumption. So it is okay to use it for livestock and agricultural purposes, but not for drinking every day. Because over time, if there is something in there like arsenic, uranium, lead, over time, over your lifetime, because you're constantly drinking that water, you'll be at risk for.
Oh no. Um, it looks like we lost connection with Dr. Chief. Let's see, let's give it a moment and see if she's able to log back on. So sorry about that. Okay. All right, we have you back on. We lost connection briefly. But yeah, if you want to pick up where you left off.
Okay, yes. So in terms of water treatment systems, it really depends on the water that you're hauling, and you should really consult an expert in terms of if you're going to put a water treatment system in your home, because depending on your water quality, whatever system you put in may or may not get the contaminant of concern. However, uh, there are systems like reverse osmosis, which is usually you can buy it at Home Depot. They're like little containers that you put under your sink. A lot of these are made for like in-home use. And I want to put a disclaimer out there that I'm not providing any technical advice here, but just to give you some examples, that's one of them. They also have the point of use filter that you attach to your faucet, and on top of the faucet that will remove, particulates and certain contaminants of that may be in the water. So I lived during the pandemic, I lived on Black Mesa, and we had to haul water because we don't have running water. And so I made sure I bought everybody a water filter, and I just put it on the faucet. Um, Even though we're hauling from a potable water source, you don't really know what the cistern is underneath as well. Because some cisterns, I don't know how long they are there, and I don't know, just to be safe, that's what I do. Is I always make sure I put a filter on the water faucet. Because you're not connected to a central water line that's not continually regulated. Um, and so those are just some examples. And then during the pandemic, there were a lot of humanitarian efforts related to on-site water treatment systems, and those are one is basically taking moisture from the atmosphere and distilling it using condensation and then accumulating that to provide drinking water. That's like kind of a reverse method from the air to your container. And then my team built a system that used a membrane, a nanofiltration membrane that did remove contaminants of concern like uranium and arsenic. And then it had a UV light that would disinfect the water. Because what happens is even if you treat the water, you don't know if there bacteria gets in there, now you're growing some microbes in the water. So that's why you need like chlorination tablet or UV light, something to disinfect the water. But a lot of people don't like that taste as well, too. So those would be like, you know, big picture steps for water treatment. Any other questions? Can you hear me? Yeah. You're muted, by the way. Hello, I'm here. Okay. Cassandra's video is frozen, but I'm still here. And I can just maybe talk a little bit more about our project. So I think also just to relay also my experiences growing up hauling water. You know, we we didn't have the big cisterns back then. We had like the small 10-gallon galvanized buckets and the 5-gallon water buckets. And we would just ladle out water as we needed it and just use the water that we needed. But I do agree with what Cassandra was saying in the sense that it does limit our opportunities and our time when we're busy spending so much time hauling water and versus using that time, energy, and money for other things to help ourselves. And so I'm just really excited about the Navajo Nation's efforts with their water rights settlement. I know Attorney General Ethel Branch and Dr. Crystal Cordova uh, is working really hard on settling the water rights.
And, once um, our water rights is settled, that will really make a way to making a huge positive change in terms of water security. Um, and I really appreciate those efforts that they're engaging in. And also just to kind of think more about other solutions, like innovative solutions, because like when many of the individuals said that they wouldn't move closer to water lines. So there are many people that just live very remotely, and they will continue to live remotely. And so for those individuals, they may not be connected to a water line because they're just way out there. So what about them? How can we get water to them? How can we minimize their water hauling that they have to do? So those are just some questions to think about in terms of the work that we're doing.
Okay, thank you so much. I apologize, everybody. I'm having some audio issues. I do want to honor the rest of the questions while we have Dr. Chief. One of the questions by Jojo Three Hairs is, what are you going to do with your report?
Okay, great. Great question. So these results were recently approved by the Navajo Nation IRB, and right now what we're doing is disseminating the information to chapter houses, to everyday users, to the Navajo Nation Water Access Coordination Group, and just let people know of what our results were. And then from there, we'll write up a report. Right now, nothing's written. So we'll just write up a short paper uh, outlining the results and trying to think more about why people answered the way that they did. And then send it back to the Navajo Nation Human Research Review Board and ask them to look at it and see if it's sufficient. And then we'll actually publish that report. And I think that information will be useful for not just our group, but the Navajo Nation, other researchers, other engineers, and health advocates, humanitarian. And it's just one more tidbit of information to add to understanding this challenge that we face.
Another question by Jojo is there a plan for the Navajo Nation to install clean water access points for the community members?
So I'm not part of the Navajo Nation, and I don't know their exact plans for construction and all their water access plans. But the person to contact would be Dr. Crystal Tuli Cordova. She's the chief hydrologist for the Navajo Nation Water Department. I know that they're currently working on the water rights settlement. They're working on some of the, I think the ARPA funds that they secured to fund different water initiatives. So that would be what I would have to say to that question. Thank you.
Another question is, if the water access points are non-potable, is this indicated at those locations? Has there been some education to the community members on the meaning of potable versus non-potable?
That's a great question. And again, that would be under the purview of the Navajo Nation. And I believe that they do their best to educate the communities about potable and non-potable sources. So I just want to clarify one point. So the transitional water access points, those are actually new watering points that were installed and constructed during the pandemic. So those ones are actually drinkable. Like, it's good to drink. They do want people to use that water. And they have a lot of signs there and labels that encourage people to use that water. So those are the transitional water access point. And the Navajo Nation does have a map. It's called Navajo Safe Water. And on that map, the Navajo Nation has done a lot of work to try to let people know what points are safe to drink. And so if you go on to that website called Navajo Safe Water, then there's a map on there that shows you where you can get your drinking water, and where can you get access to clean water. If it's not on this website, then it's likely non-potable. But usually they would say they would have a sign saying it's not drinkable. But Cassandra, if you allow me to share my screen, I can share that website.
I'm pretty limited in what I'm able to do.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry about that.
But you should still have co-host ability, so you should still be able to share.
Okay. Well, if you can just pop Navajo Safe Water, and there's a tab on there that says Find Safe Water. And if you click on that, it'll come up with a map, and people will be able to go on there and look for a safe water source.
We can also add the link after the live is over, so that people can access it as well.
Great.
But that was the end of the questions. And we are at 2:04, so I do want to be cognizant of your time. This has been very good information, very insightful. I would love to extend an additional invitation back to you to come back to our live and do more, because I know you've done a lot more extensive research on data and just really laying out the scope and the lay of the land, because there's a lot of environmental issues in our landscape on Navajo Reservation. And you've done a good job of presenting that in the past when it comes to uranium and arsenic exposure and where those areas are, et cetera. So it would be great if you could come back and share some of that information in more detail with our community. You're more than welcome to with us. I think it would provide more insight to build off of this initial conversation together. I think I would be very insightful. I have seen your work, just watching it, learning from you. I was able to learn so much more about the facts, about what it really looks like on the Navajo Reservation for uranium contamination in the water, things like that. So I think it would be good to share that with our community, and hopefully we can have you back on. I know you're super busy and we're lucky to talk with you today. Do you want to add anything else before we close out?
Yeah, thank you so much, Cassandra, for having me here. And I do want to acknowledge that there are many different groups out there doing a lot of different work. Like I mentioned earlier, there's Jenny Ingram at NAU and Tommy Rock at NAU. They've been doing testing on water quality for a long time. And then Joe Hoover from U of A and Vicky Carnicola and Bob Arnold from U of A in collaboration with Diné College. And so people are out there looking at water challenges and from different angles. And actually just got a text from Neil Roy Singer, and he's one of our Diné College partners. He's pursuing his graduate degree, and he's working on testing unregulated water on the off-grid homes that haul water. And those are in the communities of Monument Valley. And he said that storage, handling, and transfer methods are also concerning. And so that is true. You know, when you handle water, it's just like handling food. You want to make sure that your container is clean, disinfected, and remains clean. Even your water cistern, you know, making sure that you disinfect it, you know, with chlorine, making sure that your container is clean when you're handling water, you know, the hose that you're using. You don't want any kind of microbes or, you know, bacteria to get into your water cistern, because then your water will no longer be good, even if you're hauling it from a potable water source. How are you storing and handling your water? And that's where, you know, the Navajo Nation has been providing chlorination tablets for people to put in their water to make sure that it's getting rid of all those bugs that could possibly be growing in there. So if you see something green in your water storage container, that's not good, you know. Um, just like any kind of dish, you know, when you use a dish to eat off, you want to make sure your dish is clean, right? So the same thing goes with the water cisterns, the hoses that we use, the buckets, how we transfer and handle that water. All of that is important all the way till it reaches your mouth. So actually you know, the Navajo people are actually doing that whole water transfer on their own. And that's, you know, when you live in a city, you don't have to worry about all that, because you just turn the water on and that water's clean from the point you get it into your cup of glass. But for the Navajo people, they have to worry about how they're hauling their water, how they're storing their water, what kind of hose are they using. And that's a lot of like stress for just what an individual to have to think about. Um, so just yeah, so just be aware, you know, when you're handling and storing your water, to make sure you keep your containers clean and disinfected.
Yeah, when you tell me this stuff and I think about what it means for our community and the exposure and the danger and how unsafe it is that our community members don't have access to clean, running, safe water, it really hurts my heart. It's very upsetting. It's so wrong on so many levels. And, you know, in many ways, this is the consequence of systemic oppression, of genocide, of assimilation to our communities, and it's wrong. People are dying, people are getting sick, our community members are exposed to chemicals, to so many dangerous things and contaminants in our water. And I don't think that it's right. It's very wrong that our community members have to live that way. I do think that it's going to be up to us to figure out solutions. I appreciate your work and focusing on the solution and doing the studies and the research to help us, because I feel like a lot of the work you're doing does provide us tools, it educates us, and helps us create some sort of pathway for our community to create tools for ourselves to try to keep ourselves safe. So it's very important, and I appreciate that. It gets me so upset. It's not okay. Very emotional to think about it, but I do appreciate your diligence and your hard work in going down this path. And there's a whole other layer to being Dinesh on in the path that you took that I appreciate. And it's very difficult to get to your role and your position, especially considering being raised on the reservation and these socioeconomic disparities. So lots of commending to you. You inspire me.
Thank you.
And thank you for spending time with us today. And I want us to build off this conversation in the future.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you
Okay,
so
I
much.
hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, thank you.
Okay, guys, that's the end of Sihasin Hour. Thank you for joining us and bearing with us with these technical difficulties. Deep apologies about that. This will be recorded and I'll upload it to our YouTube channels, and I'll also share it later back on our Facebook page for those of you who missed. And thank you for joining us and following us along.
All right. Go on that.
Go on it. Thank you.